It's Monday, and you know what that means. Welcome to Have Faith. Let it begin.
Podcast of inspiration. It's a podcast of hope. It's a podcast of faith, and it's a podcast of friendship.
Here is your host, Angel Santana, and special co-host, Dr. E.
We're a three podcast dive.
That's it, man. Let's rock and roll in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monday edition of Have Faith, Let It Begin. Angel Santana, Dr. E is next to me. Dr. E, how was your weekend?
Angel, I had a very beautiful and balanced weekend. I did a little bit of outdoor walking. I did a little bit of hanging out at the house puttering. I did a little work in the office. We did a podcast. I mean, a lot of productive stuff, my brother. I understand your weekend was probably not as good as mine.
Nope. So here's the way it goes. How do we start? So Friday night, and my father had some health issues. He's fine, by the way, just to get that out of the way. But Friday night, he was not doing well. We decided to take him to we'll just say a local ER. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but we went to a local ER, and when we got there, blood pressure was extremely high, and we got there at 5:30. He did not get seen till 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, they strapped him on with some stuff, gave him an x-ray, gave the EKG, and no results came back for another 2 hours. They did blood work. I'm staying at home because they're so busy. You can't have more than 2 visitors. I go to sleep because that's what I'm supposed to do. Get phone call at 11, still nothing. I get up and say, I'm going to the ER. I go to the ER. They're doing more blood work. They tell us the first blood work was quote unquote inconclusive, which means they lost it, and they gave him more blood work. At that point in time, a critical patient came in. They needed more space. They kicked me out of the ER nicely. And then 6-7 minutes later, they discharged my dad. I mean, talk about, and without any information, just, hey, blood work's good. This is good. You're going to leave now. We need the room. What is that? You know, I mean, listen, we talk about this.
I have to tell you, Angel, first of all, I am very sorry that you had a negative experience, because I have to tell you, there's definitely a broken system in our emergency departments across the United States. And I will tell you, one of the problems, and I was talking to an emergency room doctor not too long ago, and I would say, we have a patient, who has a medical issue, and here's where I think the crux of it is, Angel, is that I don't think that the community doctors are taking care of their patients. So I'm going to give you an example. I know that's a very drastic statement, and I do want to back it up. And I'm not trying to say that our primary care doctors are bad, or they're lazy, or not dedicated or devoted. Mm-hmm. But I think there is a change just basically in the model of medicine. Now, if you were a person who went to medical school and became a generalist, so an internist or primary care or general practitioner or pediatrician or whatever, and you had your patient and your patient got sick, they would call you in the middle of the night and they would say, Doc, I have some chest pain, or Doc, I feel dizzy, or Doc, I fainted and I'm on the floor and I cut my head. And the way it would work is the doctors would go, you would either go to their office in the middle of the night, they would go to your house, or, they would meet you in the emergency room and they would do the work. They would evaluate you. They would order the testing, and you would be sitting there in a cubicle with your doctor. So somebody you're comfortable with, maybe a doctor that even, delivered you, or a doctor that has been taking care of you since you were a little squirt. And now you're 20 or 30 or 40 or however old you are, and you felt comfortable, you felt loved. And even if you were waiting in the emergency room for 8 hours, you knew that Doc Smith was going to be there eventually and get to you, or Doc Smith was going to stop at the house, or Doc Smith was going to meet you in the office and open up the door to the office and put on a pot of coffee, and you guys were going to get taken care of. The problem is that model doesn't exist anymore. So when I see a patient that has medical complaints that possibly could be serious, now the potential of the seriousness is not 100%, 90%, 80%, But if somebody comes to see me, they're getting their radiation treatments, they feel faint, they feel dizzy, we do their blood pressure, everything is okay. But we just don't kind of like the fact that what if we send them home and they're going to have a heart attack? What if we send them home and they're going to have a stroke? So we call the oncologist, and the oncologist 99 to 100% will say, send them to the emergency room. Send them to the emergency room. Oh, my patient's got pain in his arm. My patient has a swollen leg. My patient has a fever. My patient has this. My patient has a bloody nose. My patient has this. My patient has this. Blurry vision, headache. Oh, could be brain meds. Could be this. Could be that. Send them to the emergency room. The emergency room now is basically the spot, the landing spot that everybody who has vague symptoms, potentially big problems, will go, and we just cannot absorb the volume of people that come through. So these emergency room doctors are very skilled, and what they have to do is something that I'm not good at and I could never do in a million years. They are trained to see if a patient is appropriate for a hospital admission. So that problem, the potential heart attack, the potential stroke, the potential tumor, the potential this, the potential that, as long as that patient gets through the testing. So dad's case, it was blood pressure checks, initiation of medication, whatever, some blood testing or whatever. Once they determine that, your dad was out of harm's way, and most likely that the data would support that it would be safe to let him go home and he shouldn't just drop dead. He should be okay to go to his primary care and get his testing. That's what they have to determine. And unfortunately, because of the volume and the magnitude of the amount of people and what's on their shoulders, they're not able to comfort a patient. They're not able to, make it into a positive experience for the most part. Now, of course, there are emergency room visits that are great, I'm sure, with very warm and fuzzy outcomes. But your story, your dissatisfaction, rightfully so, is more of the norm than it is the abnorm. And I think what we need to do on Have Faith, Let It Begin is maybe do a series of podcasts about giving you guys some advice on how to actually utilize your emergency room or your urgent care. So maybe you could avoid the bad experience that Angel and his dad had. Angel, I rambled on and I apologize. I hope I gave you some info.
No, and that's why you're here. We needed your expertise on that. And I think it's very helpful. It's not always about, Angel hosting the show. It's getting the right information out to the public. And I'm encouraging the Have Faith, Let It Begin family as we close out to reach out to us if you have questions for Dr. E, that he can answer. And if he can, he will. Or if you have a story, an ER story or an urgent care story or something to that nature that you want to share, give it to us. We'll love to talk about it, and then we'll utilize it for future episodes. Would like to remind each and every one of you, the Croc Podcast, Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, is available now every 2 weeks. There's a brand new episode that just dropped yesterday. Don't worry if you just missed it. You get to listen to it again next week, and then a brand new episode will come on the following week. So Dr. E is on top of it. He's on every Sunday at 9 a.m. I'm with him. And you are with us every weekday at 7:30 Eastern time, and with Dr. E on especially on Mondays. Let us come together and pray for all these brave men and women who are nurses, doctors, technicians, and specialty people out there that are doing their part to try and overcome the amount of patients that are coming in and doing their part to get them in and out in a safe and respectful manner. Heavenly Father, we thank you for having people that have taken in this commitment to help save lives. We thank you for the heroes that have helped those during the hardest times of our lives, during the pandemic, during what is considering to be now this flu epidemic, this nasty weather we're having. We pray, Lord, that babies and children and nurses and doctors can be healed and saved and given rest. Noah is tired. Noah wants some breakfast. I'm going to close it out by saying this. May God be with you. May he shine his light upon you and grant each and every single one of you peace on earth. On behalf of Dr. E and I, we say thank you and never forget.
Faith, let it begin. Noah, go get some pancakes.
Later, guys.
Thank you for listening to Have Faith Let It Begin. We'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Have Faith Let It Begin. That's right, Ariel. We're done with another show. And it's always great to have this show with you, my love. You know, we're going to encourage each and every person to listen to our show every single weekday. That's right, you and I are going to help change the world. Do you think that you can do that for me? Huh? Yeah, you know you can. She does. We want to let you know, and yes, we encourage you to listen to our show each and every weekday, and it's going to be live at 7:30. Make sure you're subscribed to our show. Make sure you get ready, fasten those seatbelts, because Ariel and I and my family are going to bring you a new topic, a new story each and every day, right? Isn't that right, Ariel? Yeah. And she's smiling at me. Guys, enjoy your day.
Thank you for listening to Have Faith Let It Begin. We'll be back tomorrow. Have Faith Let It Begin. We'll be back tomorrow.